Gaurav sir, with your permission, shall we start the meeting, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
Please.
Respected Chairman of Vijayawada Branch, CA Gadavati Srinivasa Rao, today's resource person, CA Gaurav Gupta, and other managing committee members, Vice Chairman of the branch, and fellow members of our fraternity, good evening to one and all. We are delighted to welcome you all for the last day of 5 days virtual refresher course and practical aspects of GST, organized by GST and Indirect Taxes Committee, hosted by Vijayawada Branch of SARC of ICAI. Today we will be having technical session to be dealt by CA Gaurav Gupta to enrich your knowledge on the topic GST appeals against orders under various sections. Before moving forward, I request our chairman, CA Gadavati Srinivasa Rao, to speak few words.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the last day of the refresher course on the practical aspects of GST. We are lovely to have the excellent resource person, Gaurav Gupta sir, from New Delhi to you all. And he's going to deal with the most important and much awaited topic of the appeals, because day in, day out, because of its baby act, that the GST Act just completed its 3 years and entered into LKZ, but a lot of things that are there in the minds of the people, and so many mistakes are being happened. And we are also know yesterday about the GST audit and what are the documents that are going to be submitted to the GST audit. Ultimately, everything, if any controversy comes, it is to deal with the appeals. So mind you that because it is the severity and nobody knows about the intricacies of the GST, most of the, even I presume that thousands and lakhs of appeals may come after the GST audit is clearly and implemented in these things, because government may not take each and everything in a light manner, because it is the central excise rules that are implemented in the proposed GST. So it is very, very critical and a typical type of things. Normally, a tech-savvy people can understand the things, but it is a more document-oriented or a form-oriented. If we are not followed the form, it will be viewed very seriously in the Excise Duty Act. Now that how it can be relaxed in the GST scenario, we will listen from the Gaurav Gupta sir about the how we have to encounter the appeals, how to get the justice through appeals, and all these things, and what are the formats, because previously this central excise and social tax are the limited area. Only certain people are coming under that purview. Now that the GST being widely held act, more than 1 crore number of dealers, so definitely it is more area. And most of the professional activity going to be happen in this area. So without wasting much of your time, I request, before Gaurav Gupta sir speak on to you, I request Shrita Shirin ma'am, our secretary of the branch, to introduce Gaurav Gupta sir to you all. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to introduce today's resource person, CA Gaurav Gupta. Regarding his education qualifications, he is graduate and law graduate and is a fellow member of ICAI, and he did ESA from ICAI. He has completed his doctorate in taxation from University of France. Regarding his work experience, has more than 17 years of experience in indirect taxation, during which he was extensively involved in advising multinationals and domestic companies across a range of sectors and specializes in handling enforcements, audits, litigation matters in indirect taxes of India. He has also worked as head of taxation department of a listed group and with a tier 1 consulting firms in indirect taxes space. And he has worked as on assignments involving provision of opinion and consulting to Fortune 500 companies. His role as an author. He is also author to books on many titles on GST, including Goods and Service Tax, Law and Practice, and Handbook on GST Law and Practice, and GST Guide, Hand Guide for Practitioners, and GST Manual. And also, he is co-author for GST Referencer and Manual, and Audit and Annual Returns in GST, etc. He has authored books on service tax also. He has also contributed to various publications of Indirect Taxes Committee of ICAI and has co-authored compendium of all notifications, circulars, orders, and clarification and determinations in Delhi Value Added Act 2004. He is author of online resource on GST, www.gstindiaguide.com. His participation in other associations. He is specially invited to the Indirect Taxes Committee of ICAI for so many previous years. And he is co-chairman of Indirect Taxes Committee. And he is also member of Managing Committee of Indirect Tax Practitioners Association, Chhattisgarh, Raipur. And he has been worked as Joint Secretary, Sales Tax Bar Association, Delhi of India, and ex-senior advisor to World Association of Small and Medium Enterprises. And he has been convener of Delhi Study Group of GST ICAI for the year 2016. And he is member of Indirect Taxes Committee, ASSOCHAM. And besides that, he has addressed more than 600 seminars on indirect taxes in various forums, seminars, conferences, etc., organized by various professional bodies. He has also faculty on GST and indirect taxes organized by ICAI and also in GST Commissionerate, etc. With this illustrative profile, I request CA Gaurav Gupta to present on the today's topic. Thank you.
Before Gaurav Gupta starts the things, I request a small piece of information to the delegates that you need not mention your name and membership number on the chat box because it is filling with the so many things. If you want, you can wish the sir and you can appreciate the sir and all these things. Mind you, I request the chat box will be closed another 10 minutes and then it will be reopened and 7:40 p.m. so that you can post your queries because most of the queries are being submerged in the appreciations and various other types of information that is given in the chat box. So I request Gaurav Gupta sir to keep last 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes for the Q&A. Okay, with this next for the persons who are just open their videos, I request to kindly maintain the decorum of the institute because yesterday I seen some of the persons are sleeping and putting the video on and all these things. I request kindly please don't think otherwise a piece of this thing because you can done away with the video as well, but if you video is on, kindly maintain the decorum of the institute. Over to Gaurav Gupta sir.
We respected G. Srinivasan Rao, Chairman sir, respected Secretary ma'am, respected very learned members of Vijayawada branch, a very good evening to all of you. Friends, the various topics which you have heard over the past 2 or 4 days of the this particular series of seminars which have been happening. Appellate proceedings is one of the things which is what we are discussing will assist you in future for the very simple reason. The first audits or the first proceedings in terms of the scrutinies will happen now for financial year 17-18. And once they are done, the first orders we will see after the show cause notices under section 73 and 74, which will be the most prominent ones. Thereafter, the proceedings will be starting under the appellate proceedings. And today we will be understanding what are the various provisions, what are the powers, and what are the processes via which you should be appealing to the higher forums. Friends, at the outset, let me just recapture what you have learned with the other learned faculties, the first thing which you have seen that there are inherent powers with the authority to issue notices under various sections of this particular statute. Having said so, the only recovery procedure which has been prescribed under the statute is under section 73 and 74. Meaning thereby there has to be a show cause notice which has to be issued and which has to be replied by the SSE, whereafter the assessing authority will pass an order. The order has to be passed within a limitation period of 3 years. In case it is not a case of fraud, willful misrepresentation, or suppression. If it is falling within these three categories, the period of limitation will be counted as 5 years from the due date of filing of annual return. Now, my dear friends, at the outset, what is the due date of filing of annual return for financial year 17-18? The due date was 3rd, 5th, or 7th February 2020. What will be the limitation period? Looking into the due date extension, what will be the limitation for an assessing authority to pass an order of demand for financial year 17-18? Sir, it will be February 3rd, 5th, or 7th, 2023. In cases other than cases of fraud, willful misstatement, and suppression, and in case or any of the three elements are present, the limitation will be further extending to 5 years. So he can pass an order creating a demand on the SSE for the financial year 17-18 up to 2025. And once you have an order of that particular category with you, in those particular cases, you will be filing an appeal with the first appellate authority. Now, what is the process and everything? We will be looking forward into that. Just 1 second, I'm sharing my screen. I'm sorry, my apologies, but very surprisingly, this never happened. I'm trying to share my screen, but this is not happening. Just 1 second. Can you see my screen, sir?
Sir, it is visible, sir, but again gone. You can go for the F5 or maximize the screen, slideshow on this.
Yes, sir. Sir, it is not allowing me to do that, but nevertheless, I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yeah, sir, slideshow and something.
It is some problem, sir. It is not happening today on Zoom. This is for the first time it's so happening. But no worries. Let me just take this forward.
Yes.
Whenever the problem resolves, I'll go into the full screen mode.
Go ahead, sir, please. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So friends, today we'll be talking about the appeal hierarchy, the appeal provisions, the peers of effective appellate proceedings, appeal procedure, what precautions one should take while filing the appeal, what are the documents to be attached along with the appellate, the appeal form. So all these things we will be speaking about today. So to begin with, the first thing which we all look forward to, what is the process of, or what is the hierarchy of the appellate proceedings? In GST, the first thing which will be, there will be a decision or order from an adjudicating authority. Now that particular order can be an order for demand of tax, or for that matter, a demand of penalty or late fees or whatever. So there has to be a decision or order first. That's the first thing. That particular order or decision can be appealed to the first appellate authority, which will be Commissioner Appeals in case of center, and in case of state, usually you will find that special commissioners or additional commissioners will be the person who will be holding the chair for the first appellate authority. Against the order of the first appellate authority, the person or the assessee can go to the tribunal. Now, if it is an issue of place of supply, he will be filing an appeal before the national bench. But if it is an order against any other issue other than place of supply, then the appeal will lie before the state bench of his jurisdiction. If he is still aggrieved with the order of the state tribunal, he can file an appeal with the Honorable High Court of that particular state. If still aggrieved, he can go to Honorable Supreme Court. Now, my dear friend, you have already noticed that if it is an issue of place of supply, the matter will travel to the national bench and directly to Supreme Court. It will not go to the High Court for the very simple reason the national bench has taken up the issue of place of supply so that there is no bias between any of the state or the authorities as to which state should get the revenue. So it has formed a sort of a national bench as it happens into any kind of interstate disputes in the country. And therefore, that particular national bench will decide that what is the place of supply, because ultimately GST being a consumption tax, the taxes will travel to the state which is having the place of supply in that particular transaction. It is not an origin-based tax, it is now a consumption-based tax. So friends, place of supply issue will be traveling to national bench and then over to Honorable Supreme Court. You have time limits to file the appeal, and these time limits are to be seen very sacrosanctly. In terms of first appellate authority, the time limit is to file the appeal within 3 months. It is condonable by 1 month. In case of tribunal, the time limit which has been provided is for 3 months, and it is again condonable by another 3 months. In case the department has filed an appeal, the person against whom the appeal has been filed by the department can file a memorandum of cross objection, and it will be considered as part of that same appeal. It will be considered as good as an appeal under subsection 1 of section 107, and it has to be filed within 45 days of the communication that an appeal has been filed against that particular order by the department. And it can be further condoned by the honorable tribunal for by another 45 days. So this memorandum of cross objection is very particular in case of honorable tribunal only. Then if it is not satisfied, the assessee is not satisfied, he can file an appeal before the Honorable High Court within 180 days. And this is also condonable in case of any delay, which can be justifiably explained before the Honorable Court. And in case of Supreme Court, again, another 180 days time has been granted to file an appeal against the order of the High Court. And yes, definitely it is condonable. There are no time limits which have been provided in terms of condonation in case of Honorable High Court and Supreme Court. It is on the wish of the Honorable Bench that what time limit and what circumstances, under what circumstances condonations are granted. Usually we have seen earlier the tribunals have also granted long condonations. But when the question comes that can the first appellate authority condone the delay beyond 1 month? Now that's a very simple circumstance that there was one gentleman. He received an order. The order was served on him, let us say on 1st of January 2020. He was to file. Now I'm choosing 2020. Please ignore the COVID period extension which has been granted by notification number 35 by 2020 as extended further by 55 by 2020. Please ignore that particular extension. Having said so, the order was served on him on 1st of January 2020. He was supposed to file the appeal within 3 months. So he was supposed to file the appeal by 31st of March 2020 before the first appellate authority, and it can be further condoned by another 1 month, which is 30th of April 2020. So if the person files within up to March 31st, there is no problem. If he has filed up to 30th of April, then looking into the circumstance, the condonation can be granted by the Learned Commissioner Appeals or the First Appellate Authority. There are circumstances of 2 or 3 days of minor breach in case of filing limitation. In such particular cases, it has been, even if it has been rejected, the condonation is rejected by the Learned First Appellate Authority. The honorable tribunals have been kind enough to allow that particular extension and ask the authorities to condone the particular delay. However, if it is beyond, let's say, 15-20 days, then the Learned First Appellate Authority will look into the circumstances as to why this particular delay has happened. And if he finds that this particular delay, the reason thereof is proper, he will condone that particular delay. Now, friends, we are talking about further. So now this gentleman on whom the notice was served on 1st of January 2020 files an appeal on, let us say, 30th of August 2020, considering that there was no extension given under the notifications as I've just spoken. The question comes, can the appellate time, the limitation, which was supposed to be within 3 months, can it be condoned up to August or for that matter September or October? The humble answer is no. In case of First Appellate Authority, my dear friend, the extensions cannot be condoned at the, or the delays cannot be condoned by the First Appellate Authority by his own choice. It's a very trite rule of law now, and more so with this, this particular issue being settled by Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Singh Enterprises versus CC 2008 3 SCC 70, in which the Honorable Supreme Court has said that the First Appellate Authority has no power to condone the delay. And when the statute is very clear and explicit that this particular condonation can be given or by the appellate authority only for 1 month, that particular extension cannot be assumed by the very learned First Appellate Authority for a period beyond 1 month. So there has been cases where the assessees have been contesting that the period of limitation as provided in the Limitation Act should be adopted for the purpose of this particular condonation, and therefore the time limit which should be available is 3 years. However, this particular issue is again settled by Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Om Prakash versus Ashwini Kumar Barsi, 2010 258 ELT 5, whereby the Honorable Supreme Court said authorities created by the statute cannot apply Limitation Act 1963. They cannot condone delay unless empowered by the statute. So if they are the creatures of the statute, created by the statute, they are bound by the timelines which have been given by the statute, and therefore their powers cannot travel beyond what has been granted by the statute itself. Now this is very, very sensitive. Why I raise this particular point? Even in Uttam Sukrtek International, now this is again Honorable Delhi High Court judgment. It was a 2011 judgment. Honorable Delhi High Court observed that the delay cannot be condoned even for 1 day beyond 1 month, because beyond that there is no power under the statute with using which the learned First Appellate Authority can condone that particular delay. Now this particular 1 month limit, it was a very sacrosanct kind of a limit. Only one exception has been carved out, which was in Ketan V. Prakash versus Directorate of Enforcement. It is again an Honorable Supreme Court judgment. Delay can be condoned if the remedy was being pursued and with a wrong forum. Now, in that particular case, it is not an extension of or a condonation of time. It was basically that particular time frame, which is where you are pursuing the appeal before a wrong forum, that will be carved out from the timeline available. And after removing that particular time which you have pursued before the wrong forum, whatever time you have taken will be considered for the purpose of 3 + 1 month timeline. Now, friends, why this time limit in GST becomes very, very important? This is not for the first time we are talking about filing an appeal. However, friends, please do remember that in the earlier regime, if we talk about VAT, service tax, or for that matter excise, every time you were served with an order, the service was usually by way of a registered post, or for that matter a by hand delivery. You have received those particular orders from the adjudicating authorities. But now in GST, you will be finding that your orders are posted on your GST portal. So every time whenever there is a posting, there will be an intimation which will go onto the registered mobile number and the registered email ID that an order under section, so whatever the relevant section be, 73, 74, 69, 61, whatever the section is, the intimation will go on the mobile number of the person which is registered with the GST portal. Now, once that particular knowledge has been put into the domain of the assessee, it will be held or it will be seen as a valid service, in my humble opinion, by the honorable courts in the coming time. So the very plea that I have not been served a proper order by a registered post, or for that matter by a speed post, will not come to the rescue of the assessee in the coming days. So please take note of this particular strong point. Number one, put the email ID and phone number always of the assessee in the GST portal. We have seen that many professionals, they have put their own mobile number and their own email ID as the communication mail ID and the communication telephone number for OTP purposes in the GST portal of their assessees or clients. Sir, please avoid that particular practice. Stop that practice. You should put only the mobile number and the email ID of your client into his GST number for two very simple reasons. Number one, any compliance which is made when you are receiving an EVSE is with the permission of that particular client only. When that particular number does not belong to the client, even an allegation in terms of improper compliance made by a professional can be taken up by the assessee. Number two, in case you miss to see that particular notice, or for that matter that intimation which has reached to your mobile number, the entire burden of losing a particular matter will lie on your shoulder. So if it is reported to the mobile number of the assessee, now he has to keep a track why he missed. In many cases, you must have seen that in case of cancellations of this one registration, intimation was sent to that particular mobile number when a show cause notice why the number should not be cancelled was issued. And many a times, many professionals, or for that matter, many clients have missed, and thereafter their cancellation order was passed by the authorities. So my dear friend, in case it is your mobile number, the entire liability on that particular case will lie on your shoulder. So I'm putting a very small thought with you. The condonation has an issue, and therefore if condonation has an issue, there is a gravity, the very appeal which has to be filed by the taxpayer, the opportunity is lost if 4 months have lapsed from the date of service of that particular notice on the taxpayer. So this was the first thing which we were looking forward to. Now, there is a threshold for filing then appeal by the department. Department cannot file the appeal for any amount before the higher forums. CBIC defines these particular time limits from time to time. So before tribunal, it is 50 lakhs, High Courts 1 crore, Supreme Court 2 crores. Below this, if the matters are there, those particular matters can be will not be appealed against by the authorities. Sir, having said so, there are certain non-appealable orders also, meaning thereby an appeal cannot be filed against these particular orders. The first order in GST, against which no appeal can be filed by the taxpayer, is an order by the commissioner or the authority empowered to direct the proceedings from one officer to another. So you cannot appeal against an order which is directing the authority to adjudicate a particular matter or any proceedings from one officer to another. Second, an order pertaining to seizure or retention of books of accounts register and other documents. Now, this is very important. Please note that it is only talking about seizure or retention of books of accounts register and other documents. It is not talking about the seizure, register, other things. So if the order is for the seizure of things, goods, as has been notified in the section, that particular order can be appealed against by the taxpayer. But if it is only about a seizure or retention of the books of accounts, register and the documents of a taxpayer, that particular order of the proper officer cannot be challenged by the taxpayer in any of the appeals. Third, an order sanctioning prosecution under this particular act. Now, this becomes a criminal act, and therefore, the purview, in my humble opinion, will move on to the criminal act, and therefore, what the person will be, going under an appeal, against that particular order sanctioning the prosecution, will definitely be entertained by the Honorable High Court, but by way of a writ. So that particular procedure will be entirely a different procedure. It is not a normal appellate procedure under the Act. In this particular case, one particular limb, which is primarily the Honorable Tribunal, is sort of removed, and the person will have to go in terms of getting a relief directly from before the Honorable High Court. Last but not the least, an order under Section 80. Now, in this particular case, under Section 80, application can be made by a person to pay the taxes in installment. Now, this particular choice, or this particular privilege, I would say, has been given by the statute to assessee in very, very limited cases. But if the same is rejected, that particular application is rejected by the proper officer, in that particular case, the appeal will not hold good. Now, what does Section 80 says? It says that on an application filed by a taxable person, the commissioner, for reasons to be recorded in writing, extend the time for payment or allow payment of any amount due under this Act other than the amount due as per the liability self-assessed in any return by such one person in monthly installment not exceeding 24. So within 2 years, he can allow that person to pay in installment other than a liability which is already self-assessed in the return. Now, friends, please also note, if there is a self-assessed liability in the return, in today's circumstances, you cannot file a return without paying the taxes. I hope every one of us are very clear. Whatever taxes are being reflected as payable in the return has to be first paid. And once you pay your taxes after the set-off, it allows you to file the return. And therefore, my dear friend, this particular section, what it is aligned, is saying that whatever taxes you have self-declared paid, those cannot be extended. But other than that, if there is a liability of any person, he can definitely move to commissioner requesting him for an installment to be made over a period not exceeding 24 months in which that particular liability can be paid by that particular person. If the learned commissioner rejects that particular request, an appeal cannot be made against that particular order. So that particular administrative power has been made sort of absolute for the taxpayers. Now, let's talk about the first appeal. On a very broad level, my dear friends, if you talk about the appellate provision, appeal to the first appellate authority is governed by Section 107 of the CGST Act. Appeal, or the revision powers of the commissioner, is provided under Section 108 of the CGST Act. Appeal to the appellate tribunals is guided by Section 109 to 110 of the this particular Act. Appeal to High Court, again 111 to 116, and appeal to Supreme Court is further thereafter to 118, Section 118. Now, I'm not going into the forms at this particular stage. Let me first speak about 107 at the outset. Section 107 talks about the first appeal to the commission, to the first appellate authority, as I've already spoken. In case of central government, it will be the commissioner appeals. In case of state government, it will be special commissioners or additional commissioner who will enjoy that particular power. Having said so, what does Section 107 say? Please read it very carefully. It is in front of the screen, which is appearing in front of you. Any person aggrieved by any decision or order passed under this Act or SGST or UTGST by an adjudicating authority. So there is a very key phrase which has been used as aggrieved by any decision or order. So there has to be an order in writing. There cannot be a preempt, meaning thereby you know that an authority will be taking a particular action against an SSC. He can go for a freezing of the bank account, or he can go for any adverse action against that particular SSC. Unless there is an order which is in place, that particular SSC cannot move to an appellate authority without that particular order. So whenever there will be an order, it will be reflecting in your GSTN portal. You will be selecting that particular order to file an appeal against that particular order. That mechanism is already in place. So a person agreed by any decision or order passed under this Act or SGST or UTGST by an adjudicating authority may appeal to such appellate authority as may be prescribed within 3 months from the date on which such decision or order is communicated to such person. Friends, I've already spoken about that in case of first appellate authority, the time limit of 3 months and then thereafter an extension of 1 month is allowed. But beyond that, you cannot file an appeal with the first appellate authority. Now, intimations, letters, enquiries, all these letters are not decisions or orders. So they will not be forming part of any kind of appeal, against that particular SSC. Having said so, please also note that if a search order or for that matter, investigation order or an inquiry order has been, given by the authority to his subordinate officers, can you file? Because that is an order. Can you file an appeal against it? No, sir. For the very simple reason that order should be communicated to you. Now, those particular orders are not communicated to such particular person. Those are internal orders of the department. If there is any order which is internal to the department, that cannot be appealed against by the taxpayer. There must be a communication. If there is no communication of an order, so there was proceedings which was going on. I'm taking a very live example. There was a very proceeding going on by the department, and department had taken all the submissions from the SSC and then passed an order. Now the proper officer who has passed the order passed it offline. He has not passed it online, and therefore there is no intimation in terms of the SMS or email ID had gone to the taxpayer. In this particular case, my dear friend, in absence of a communication of that particular order, the time limit will not start from the first day. It will start when the person will obtain a copy of that particular order from the officer. Now, please also appreciate there have been cases where a lot of delay has been seen in terms of taking that particular order from the authority. Now, when you are saying that order is being taken from that particular authority, meaning thereby a person who was undergoing a particular proceeding got to know after 2 years that there is an order which was passed 1.5 years back by the authority against him. Now, in such particular cases, if it is a bona fide belief that the proceedings have been closed, that has to be proved by that particular, assessee, the client, in order for that particular court to understand what is the date of communication. Many a times in case of offline orders, the date of communication is proved by the department by showing the speed post or the registered post diary entry in their record. Because once a letter has been sent using the registered post or speed post, it is presumed that a due delivery in the normal course, which is 1 day or 2 days, is made to the client or the SSC. So there is a presumption in case of sending the orders by registered post or speed post that it will be communicated to the assessee within a day or two as the time taken by the speed post or registered post as the case may be. I've already spoken about the decision of Singh Enterprises versus CCE Jamshedpur. I'm not reiterating it. Now, my dear friend, there is a very, very important requirement to file an appeal along with a pre-deposit. So you have to first fill a pre-deposit, pay a pre-deposit, and then you can file an appeal in GST. The question comes, is it proper to collect this particular amount before filing of an appeal? Now, this particular question has traveled to many courts. The right to appeal is a constitutional right, and therefore nobody can place any restriction on that particular right. But however, my dear friends, the question of filing the pre-deposit is not about the challenging the right to appeal. Please appreciate. If you do not put a pre-deposit, it is not challenging your right to appeal. it will not be providing the stay which is required by you, and therefore the department can proceed to recover the entire amount from you in case a demand has been confirmed by the adjudicating authority against a particular assessee. So the assessee has got an order whereby he has got an order of demand of rupees 10 lakh rupees, and now that particular person is wanting to file an appeal against the order. He is supposed to pay a sum equal to 10% of that particular amount of tax in dispute. So if the total amount of tax in dispute is 10 lakh, he is supposed to pay 1 lakh as pre-deposit before filing of that appeal. And if he pays that 1 lakh, the entire amount which is there is sort of stayed. So the department will not take any coercive step against that assessee for 10 lakh rupees if 1 lakh rupee pre-deposit has been made. Now, very interestingly, there is a maximum amount which has been prescribed. So whatever your total tax dispute is, you will be paying 10% of it. And this section is very categorical. It is saying remaining amount of tax in dispute. So your tax amount was 10 lakh, your interest was, let's say, 5 lakh, and then penalty equal amount was 10 lakh. So total 25 lakh is what you are contesting. But if you pay 10% of the tax in dispute, then in that particular case, my dear friend, your entire demand is stayed, which is 10 lakh into 10%, 1 lakh rupees. So on payment of 1 lakh, the entire 25 lakh amount is stayed, and no recovery proceedings will be made by that particular department against that particular assessee. Now, in this particular case, the maximum pre-deposit which has been prescribed is 25 crores. So, for example, there is a 1,000 crore rupees dispute. The maximum amount which has to be deposited by the person will be 25 crores. 25 crores under CGST and 25 crores under SGST. So you have to please appreciate that there is an upper ceiling on the pre-deposit, not a lower ceiling. So assessees where there are demands who are SMEs, somewhere I feel that they are into a detrimental kind of a position for the very simple reason. Assessee who has a dispute of 1,000 crore need or can enjoy the benefit of an appeal by meagerly paying 25 by 25. But a person who is into a dispute of 10 lakhs will need to shed 1 lakh plus 1 lakh from his kitty to be deposited with the government. So somewhere the relief is not with the small taxpayer, but the large, or what we usually call as a high-pitched assessment cases. Now, friends, please also note that in case you have a tax amount which is admitted, what is admitted tax liability? There was an amount of tax which you find that yes, it was payable by me. You have to deposit that amount in full. So there was a total order of, let us say, 15 lakhs. 5 lakhs was admitted tax, and 10 lakh rupees was amount of tax in dispute. So there were two issues. You want to pay, you want to agree on 5 lakhs. So in that particular case, you will have to pay 5 lakhs first, and 10% of 10 lakh, which is the tax in dispute. Total 6 lakhs rupees you have to pay before filing this particular appeal. If you fail to pay the admit tax, the authority can reject the appeal at the first instance. So be very, very careful. If you are going for any appellate proceeding, any amount which is admitted should be deposited in full. Any amount which is in dispute, tax amount only, 10% of such particular tax amount will be deposited with the authority. Now, what will happen, sir, if there is no tax in dispute, but it is only merely the penalty? Sir, in that particular case, 10% of that penalty will be taken for the purpose of pre-deposit compliance. Now, what are the powers of Learned Commissioner? Now, Learned Commissioner has been entrusted with huge powers under Section 107. Before I move to 108, let me also speak about the powers of the Learned, First Appellate Authority, which has been provided to him under this particular statute. Now, what does it say? The Commissioner, what all he can do? He can modify, he can set aside what we call sorry, the first appellate authority, as that particular authority will think as just and proper, can, number one, confirm that particular order of the proper officer. Number two, modify. Now, modify is a term which can be read to enhance or to decrease. If it is a decrease, there is no problem. If it is an enhancement of the amount, in that particular case, a show cause notice should be given to the person against whom such particular demand is supposed to be enhanced. I'll come to that later. But the commissioner can confirm, modify, or annul, set aside that particular order of the proper officer, but cannot remand back the order to the proper officer who has passed that particular order. So first appellate authority cannot say, send back that particular order for a fresh adjudication to the first authority, the adjudicating authority. The first appellate authority will have to either confirm the order, modify the order, or he will annul the order. We have seen very recently in one of the cases, the first appellate authority had sent back the order for passing a fresh order to the first the adjudicating authority. The power was not there with that particular officer, and therefore this particular order is void and will not hold good when it will go to the honorable tribunal. Now, coming on to section 108, having understood the powers of commissioner. Now, I also mentioned that in case there is a order, or there is a order by the commissioner to enhance any text, in that particular case, section 107 subsection 11 is very clear that in case such particular cases, if the text has to be increased, then in that particular case a show cause notice will first be issued under the section 73 and 74, and after the proper proceedings under 73 and 74, only then a particular order can be passed for enhancing any amount against the assessee. Now, there can be multiple questions on this count. Let me take some very basic questions before I move on to tribunal. First question which we have found is, sir, can multiple appeals be filed against one particular order? Meaning thereby, I had an order and there were 5 different issues in that. So can I file one issue while I'm examining the other issue because I'm afraid that my time limit might lapse? No, sir. If there is one order, there can be only one appeal against that particular order. There cannot be multiple appeals against that particular order. So you have to decide what is the amount of text in dispute and what is the amount of text which you are admitting, and thereafter only you can go into the appeal. Second, can there be multiple show cause notices against a particular taxpayer? Definitely, sir. There can be multiple proceedings against a particular assessee for the same financial year. Sir, can it be for the same financial year on the same issue? Yes, sir. So let me say, on the input tax credit, you have already received a show cause notice from the authorities. So they were the scrutiny of by the range, and thereafter an audit was conducted of that particular person. The audit also came out with its own issues and wanted to issue another show cause notice. Can it do so? Sir, it can do so. However, having said so, I am also placing a very strong statement with all of you that today we cannot appreciate the limitation which is provided under section 73. What does 73 say? Sir, if your case is not a case of, number 1, fraud, number 2, willful misstatement, number 3, suppression, then your time limit for any officer to pass an order of demand will be 3 years from the due date of filing of annual return. It is not the actual date of filing of an annual return. It is 3 years from the due date of filing of annual return. Now, my dear friend, in this particular case, under section 74, which involves the cases of fraud, willful misstatement, and suppression, the same timeline is enhanced to 5 years from the due date of filing of annual return. So suppose a person has been issued a first show cause notice by the range in 2022, which is the year next. on input tax credit, whereby the department said that we are issuing a show cause why these amounts of ITC should not be recovered from you, which you have availed, wrongly. The SSE already was contesting, but meanwhile his audit came in 2024. The department again issued a show cause notice, whereby it said further to the earlier show cause notice, there is another 10 lakh rupees of ITC. We want to reject that and I'm issuing you a show cause. Why this amount cannot be taken from you? Sir, can these two happen? Yes, sir. Both show cause notices are valid. However, in the second show cause notice, the department will have to make use, or will have to issue the demand under section 74, extending the limitation to 5 years, because you are sitting in 2024. For 17-18, the demand cannot be raised under the normal without fraud, willful misstatement, or suppression case. And therefore, if already one show cause was there on the same issue, you have a very good case of limitation where you can say, sir, there is no suppression because every fact was already into the knowledge of the department. See, they have already issued a show cause notice after examining my records. However, if another show cause notice is issued before 2023, then the plea of extended limitation will not help or come to the rescue of the taxpayer. He will have to address on merits only. So limitation will only come to the benefit when 3 years have lapsed, which is 2023 February. Once it is gone, then there will be cases where we will be contesting that, sir, limitation cannot be evoked in this particular case. Larger limitation is not applicable. It will be limited to the normal limitation of 3 years from the due date of filing of annual return. The order should have been passed within that particular period. So friends, be very, very careful. There are many myths about multiple proceedings, multiple show cause notices. Whether multiple proceedings can be undertaken against a particular SSC, looking into the paucity of time and the topic given to me, I'm not going into that. Now, once you have received a show cause notice, you will get a order against that. There can be a single order against multiple show cause notices also, but your appeal will be filed as per the first order, adjudicating order which you have received. So if there are multiple adjudicating orders, there will be multiple appeals filed before the higher forum. You cannot club 4 or 5 orders and file one appeal, even if the subject matter of the entire 4 or 5 orders is same. So that is not the choice of the SSC. You will have to file one appeal against one particular order only. Now coming on to the second, because it is the section is very categorical. It says any order or a decision. So one order, one particular appeal will be filed by the SSC. Coming on to the next point, appeal up to rupees 50,000. Now we are coming on to the stage of tribunal. The learned first appellate authority has rejected your appeal. Now what will you do? You will apply to the higher forum, which is honorable tribunal. Now honorable tribunal, as we have already seen, there are state tribunals and there will be national tribunal. If it is an issue relating to place of supply, it will be traveling to national tribunal. Otherwise, the appeal will lie with the state tribunal. Now, friends, why place of supply is such a sensitive issue? I've already spoken about it, but then you must read Section 77 of the CGST Act and Section 19 of the IGST Act. It is a very, very important section because it provides a relief to the taxpayer that if you have paid a wrong tax under the wrong head, meaning thereby inter as intra or intra as inter, then you will be getting refund of the wrongly paid taxes, but you have to pay the correct taxes. And there is also under subsection 2 of section 77 and 19, there is a waiver of interest and penalty on such particular amount, meaning thereby on such particular delayed payment of the correct taxes, the SSC will not be required to pay interest. So that's a big relief for the taxpayer or the SSC. However, if it is still an issue relating to place of supply, it will travel to the National Appellate Authority. Now, friends, the appeal of the first appellate authority can be appealed to the second appellate authority, the tribunal. It can the tribunal can take, or the appeal can be filed before the honorable tribunal against the order passed under section 107 and 108. What is 107, sir? We have already seen. 107 is the first appellate authority order. And what is order under 108? It is the order by the revisional authority. I will come to the topic who is the revisional authority at the end of my discussion. But against these two orders, an appeal can be filed before the Honorable Tribunal. This appeal again has to be filed within 3 months. The time of condemnation allowed in such particular cases, another 3 months. So you have to be very sacrosanct again with your time of filing of the appeal before the Honorable Tribunal. And appeal up to rupees 50,000 may not be admitted by the tribunal. Now that's again a choice which has been given under the Act to the Honorable Tribunal, that below 50,000, whether it is an assessee or departmental appeal, you please reject that appeal, or you, sorry, I'm not saying reject, but we should say you may not admit that particular appeal. That is the wish, or that is a sweet will of the Honorable Tribunal if it allows the admission below 50,000. Pre-deposit of an amount 20% of the remaining amount in tax in dispute, in addition to the amount deposited before the first appellate authority. So before the first appellate authority, you have already deposited 10%. Now please deposit another additional 20%, totaling and adding up to 30% of the total tax in dispute, which you should be filing before filing the appeal before the Honorable Tribunal. So that particular amount need to be paid first, and then you can file your appeal before the Honorable Tribunal. Once that pre-deposit is given, your amount is automatically stayed, no coercive action on you in terms of any recovery of tax, interest and penalty for the tax amount which is in dispute before that particular tribunal. Now, tribunal has been given wider powers. If you have already seen under section 107, the Commissioner Appeals, the first appellate authority, let me say like that, has got the power, number one, to confirm, to modify or to annul the order of the first or the proper officer. However, tribunal under section 108, it has got the power. Tribunal may pass the order as it thinks fit, confirming, modifying, annulling the decision or order appeal against, may refer the case back to the appellate authority or the revisional authority or to the original adjudicating authority with such directions as it may think fit for a fresh adjudication or decision after taking additional evidences, if any. So friends, please do remember that it is a very, very sensitive area. Your order can travel back to the square one, zero, in case Honorable Tribunal remands it back to the proper officer who has passed the particular order. So you have to be very, very careful. Remands, in my humble opinion, are the toughest part, because you have to rerun the entire cycle from the getting your case adjudicated to first appellate authority and then coming back to tribunal with same or similar fate when the department has made the additions in your case. Very strictly, the law has provided for one thing. Now I'm putting a word of caution here. Only 3 adjournments can be allowed by Commissioner Appeal, or for that matter now the tribunal. If you have gone to the tribunal for the first hearing and you have requested for an adjournment, so the second hearing will be given to you. If you are adjourning the second also, third will be given to you. But once the third hearing is also adjourned, then there will be no extensions which will be given to you, and an ex parte order can be passed by the appellate authority, maybe the first appellate authority or the second appellate authority. A small instruction has also been given in the Act to the appellate authorities. In case of both first and second appellate authority, the Act provides that every appeal, wherever possible, now that is the liberty which the Act has given, wherever possible, the appeal should be decided within 1 year from the date on which it is filed. So while there is a direction, but there is no mandatory requirement to pass the order within 1 year from the date from which this particular appeal was filed. So to the best of their capability, the learned commissioner, the learned first appellate authority, or for that matter, the honorable tribunal should try to dispose of the matter within 1 year wherever possible. And sir, this is in the best interest of the assessee and justice. The faster is the justice mechanism, the lower will be the cost of litigation. It is a very simple, formula. If an assessee has a demand for 1718, let us take a very simple example. There was a demand from the assessee for 100 rupees for financial year 1718. The first adjudicating officer, the proper officer, took 4 years to adjudicate that particular proceeding and confirm the demand of 100 rupees against that particular assessee. Now, after 4 years, the appeal was filed. Another 1 year, it was taken by the learned commissioner to pass the order. Another 1 year, the honorable tribunal took an time. Rather, we should put it 1.5 years, considering the timelines also of filing. So, after a time frame of 6.5 years, the assessee is getting an order confirming his demand for financial year 1718. So now this 100 rupee demand, coupled with the interest, which is right now given under the statute at the rate of 18%. So 100 into 18% into 6.5, 117. So now your interest is bigger than your original tax. So my dear friend, it is very, very important that the proceedings of the appellate should close as soon as possible, so that the interest recovery from that particular person should be reduced to the extent possible. You cannot reduce the tax, you cannot reduce the penalty, whatever is leviable, but interest is something which nobody can change. So it will remain proportionate to the tax which is recoverable for the time frame when such particular tax is not paid to the credit of the government. Now friends, having understood the tribunal procedure, now any substantial question of law can travel to Honorable High Court. My dear friends, tribunal is the last fact-finding body. So if there is a decision which requires an examination of the facts and a decision thereon, then the matters will not travel to Honorable High Court. It will be only the matters where there is a substantial question of law, those will travel to Honorable High Courts and Supreme Court. Sir, let me refer to the very celebrated judgment of Honorable Supreme Court. Again, Sir Chunilal Mehta and Sons versus Century Spinning Mills and Manufacturing Company has laid down the following test to determine whether a substantial question of law is involved. Number one, whether the issue directly or indirectly affects substantial rights of the parties. Number two, whether the question is of general public importance. Number three, whether it is open question in the sense that the issue has not been settled by pronouncement of the Supreme Court. Number four, whether the issue is not free from difficulty. Last but not the least, whether it calls for a discussion for alternate view. So if either of them is satisfied, it will be held as substantial question of law. And in case one wants to go before Honorable High Court, he has to fulfill these particular questions in his mind as to which category does he falls in, so that the admission can happen in the Honorable High Court. Sir, I'm again putting in one more fact. Perversity of facts also constitutes substantial question of law. Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Sudarshan Silk Mill, Silk and Saris, had laid down the attributes of perversity by holding that an order or finding is perverse on the facts if it falls in any of the following categories. And I think this is a learning for all of us, because this should be one of the grounds if one of the conditions or categories are satisfied here. This particular aspect, that the order is perverse, should be taken up by the assessee or the professional from the very inception, which is show cause notice. I'll just speak about one more point about show cause notice, but let's first close this. The finding is without any evidence, so there is an arbitrary finding. So if a finding is arbitrary, then again there is a question of law, substantial question of law. The finding is contrary to the evidence. Now there was a clear record of sale and purchase which was shown or which was produced by the assessee, but still the assessing authority or the adjudicating authority, it proceeded to sort of presume any different figure and apply tax thereon. There is no direct nexus between the conclusion of the fact and the primary fact upon which that particular conclusion is made. So, for example, the entire case was the conveyance was not carrying proper document. But if tomorrow it is being shown that the proper document in terms of invoice, e-way bill, everything was produced before the proper officer, in that particular case, again, the order will be said to be a perverse order, whereby it is no direct connection between the conclusion and the primary fact. Last but not the least, when an authority draws a conclusion which cannot be drawn by any reasonable person or authority on the material and facts placed before it, then again it is a substantial question of law. So, my dear friends, with these two cases, I have tried to sort of encompass what will be going into the substantial question of law and what will be holding back till the level of tribunal. Till tribunal, there is no problem, because both substantial question of law as well as the question of facts, both will be entertained. But it is only the question of law which will travel to Honorable Supreme Court, not the question of facts. Coming on to the next important topic, which is the peers of an effective appellate proceedings. But before I move on to that, I am highlighting one very important point before you. There cannot be a confirmation of demand. There cannot be a confirmation of demand if that particular ground has not been raised in the show cause notice. So show cause notice was on the aspect that your rate is incorrectly applied. It is applied at 12%, but the rate is correct at 18%. During the examination of records during the proceedings, after the show cause notice, the first adjudicating authority, the proper officer, found that as per his opinion, the valuation is also wrong. So what in his order he did, in his order against that particular show cause notice, he confirmed the enhancement of rate, plus also he confirmed that there was a valuation difference of rupees 15 lakhs, which was ignored by the taxpayer, or maybe 1.5 crores or 15 crores, whatever. Now, in this particular case, sir, the second point, the valuation, was never ever in question in show cause notice. And therefore, if it is not in question in show cause notice, no demand can be confirmed in the order or decision by the very learned proper officer or the first adjudicating authority. So adjudicating authority cannot travel beyond the ground which has been given in the show cause notice. There are cases where we have seen the amounts have not been put into show cause notice. Sir, if you have any such kinds of show cause notice, rather than challenging them first on merits, please challenge the very authority under which it is being issued. Because a vague show cause notice is no show cause notice. A show cause notice which does not contain an amount of tax in dispute or the tax to be recovered from the SSC is no show cause notice. A show cause notice which failed to provide the peers required for a valid demand is again a no show cause notice. Let me give you a very small example. I am a proper officer. I have issued you a show cause notice. I am saying, sir, we have found that you have understated your turnover by 10 lakh rupees. Why should not I recover GST of 1.8%? Now that's a show cause notice on a very broad level given to you. Sir, my very humble opinion, this particular show cause notice is improper and void ab initio. Why, sir? GST is no tax. GST is no tax. It will be either central GST or the respective state GST or IGST. He cannot demand GST from a taxpayer. Why I am so categorical? Because a valid tax requires him to establish, the officer, that the transaction which has been undertaken by the person satisfy all the criterias or all the conditions provided in the charging section, which is what, sir? It is section 9 of the CGST Act. What does section 9 say, sir? Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 2, therein there shall be levied a tax hereinafter referred to as central GST on all intrastate supplies of goods or services or both, other than supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption on the value determined under section 15 and at the rate notified by the government on the recommendation of the GST Council. Now, my dear sir, there are many things which are required to make a valid charge. Number one, there has to be a intrastate supply or an interstate supply. Intrastate will go under C plus S, interstate will go under I. So there has to be first a supply. The supply has to be an interstate or intrastate supply. The supply has to be that of a goods or services or both. The supply should have a value determined under section 15. The supply should have a rate notified by the government. All these criteria have to be fulfilled. There cannot be a simple show cause. Sir, you are required to pay 10 lakh rupees, please pay. No, sir. Please tell me, what are the supplies on which you are wanting to tax it, and how that particular supply falls within the ambit of taxable supply. Sir, why we are stressing so much on this? Because these are the grounds of appeal. When we make an appeal, it is not merely a formality. You have to look into the very aspect, starting from the show cause notice. So whenever an appeal comes to you, please do not start framing an appeal without reading the show cause notice. You have to move in a channel in GST. First, call for the show cause notice. In the show cause notice, please take note, number one, of the facts on which the entire proceedings have started. So they will list, okay, these are the facts. Number two, what are the grounds on which they have confirmed they were wanting to confirm the demand? That is in the show cause notice. Number three, value and other aspects have to be confirmed. Number four, the officer who has issued that particular order, show cause notice, was he the proper jurisdictional officer to issue that? Does he have the power? If not, then again the proceedings are initiated. Number six, if you have looked into the show cause notice, you must also understand before which authority. In the show cause notice itself, they will mention the authority, the date and time of hearing which has been awarded to you. Friends, for an appeal, the first thing is to read the show cause notice. Second, the order. Please then align whether the order is in line with the demands raised in the show cause notice. Is the demand which has been raised, is it fulfilling all the criteria? Number three, is there any demand which is not there in show cause notice which has been confirmed or raised new by the first appellate authority, or for that matter the person who is adjudicating? Any demand which travels beyond show cause notice will be void ab initio. Very easy to be broken, very easy to be contested before the higher forums. Sir, having said so, what are after once you have received, you have read the show cause notice, you have read the order, now you are wanting to file an appeal. I will just take you through for 1 minute. I'll show you the form. The form using which you should file the appeal. So this is your form APL01. The GST IN temporary ID or UIN ID, because that is required to file an appeal. Legal name of the appellant, we all know that. Trade name, we all know that. Address, order number and order date, we all know that. Designation and address of the officer passing the order. Date of communication of the order appealed against. This is very, very important. Whatever you fill in here will be very material and you need to prove it. Name of the authorized representative. Detail of case under dispute. So you have to give a sort of brief issue of the case under dispute. Description of the classification of goods or services in dispute, if it is something which is relatable to classification. Period of dispute, amount of dispute. An amount of dispute has to be filled into this particular kind of a column. Market value of seized goods in case there is a case of seizure. Whether the appellate authority wish to be heard in person, I think de facto you should say yes, because you need a proper hearing to explain any of your observation to a particular authority. Statement of facts, grounds of appeal. Again, in this particular case, when you're filing an appeal, in income tax, I have seen that most of my counterparts, they mention the grounds of appeal, but they do not detail out the grounds of appeal. It is only written in brevity, 1 or 2 liners. and those are also more or less generic. My humble submission in GST, whenever you're going for grounds of appeal, please make sure that you are you're putting all your submission in respect of that ground of appeal in that particular form itself. That will help you, because the entire copy travels to the first appellate authority, or for that matter in case of tribunal, three copies are there. If your submissions are enclosed as part of grounds of appeal, there will be nothing which will be lost or tomorrow required to be submitted later to the honorable tribunal, or for that matter the first appellate authority. Last and not the least, the very important, what you write in the prayer is very important, very important. You may pray for a remand for fresh adjudication. You may pray for set aside, analyzing that particular order. You may want a partial relief. What exactly are you putting in prayer will be very material for you. Last but not the least, amount of text demand created, admitted, and disputed. As I've already said, that any amount of demand which is so out of the total created demand, it has divided between admitted and disputed. Whatever is admitted within the column B, it will all be required to be paid and will be recovered from the SSC in case of non-payment. But in case it is a disputed amount, in that particular case, my dear friend, the amount which is under dispute, you only need to pay a pre-deposit to the extent of 10% and additional 20% subject to a maximum limit of 25 crores and 50 crores at the two levels, first appellate authority and the second appellate authority. And the pre-deposits need to be given in table number 15 of the form. So my dear friends, it is very simple a form to be filled. A mere formality of filling this particular form without examining the exact grounds, what is the ground you are taking the battle on, will not help you, because then it will be the entire battle will be lost, if not today then in the coming sometime. So you have to be very careful while drafting your grounds of appeal and your prayer. I will be taking all your practical questions on grounds of appeal and the prayers in some time. Let me come back to one aspect. Along with this particular form, you should enclose, number one, you should enclose the show cause notice. Number two, you should enclose the order, a certified copy of the order. Number three, you should enclose the RUDs, very important. Many of the times the show cause notice contains reference to relied upon documents, or they are referring to certain documents. It is your right to have those particular documents before you start writing the order. Please understand and appreciate, for writing a particular reply to a show cause notice, all the relied upon documents should be available with you. So if you are at an appellate stage, or for that matter at a reply to show cause notice stage, please first of all check all the documents which have been relied upon by the show cause notice, are they available with you or not. Many a times we are reluctant, we say okay fine, this will be made available by the SSC. Sir, in today's time, how many of you, I understand most of my members have been filing all the returns. Now on a very lighter note, how many of you were lucky whose GSTR 1, GSTR 3B and books of accounts, all three were reconciling for 1718 for a client? If you tell me Vijayawada branch had sort of the members have, already three of them were reconciled in 1718. Sir, I am actually saying that you are one of the very few across the country who have done it. In the very first year, there were a lot of confusions. People have spilled over errors, omissions, inadvertent mistakes. Different, taxes remained unpaid or were paid subsequently. Now, this is the first time that we are sitting in a regime where there has to be a rectification which should be done. Earlier, what used to happen, you made a mistake in VAT return, you used to revise the VAT return, and the correct taxes and the turnover were reflecting in that particular return only for that tax period. But in GST, if you have committed a mistake in 3B, you can rectify that mistake by rights, as per the understanding, I would say, given by circular number 26 by 2017, dated December 2017, that you can make it into subsequent return. So you have paid less of tax, no problem, sir. Pay it in the subsequent return. You have paid excess tax, no problem, sir. You can claim back or adjust that into the subsequent return. Now, my dear sir, please understand and appreciate there was 100 rupees of taxes for the month of September 19. I was supposed, I paid only rupees 80. So 20 rupees is short. When did I pay this 20 rupees? Sir, I paid this 20 rupees in May 2020. So there will be two returns which will be wrong, which will not be reconciling with my books or for that matter GSTR 1. It will be September 2019 and May 2020. So my dear sir, in this particular regime, you have to be very, very careful. Your entire understanding, you're not, when you're going for an appellate proceeding, you are not going for a scrutiny. Most of the times we have also seen that the assessee or the professional, the way they can, take up the appellate proceeding, they do not focus on a mere small point, which is the ground. They take up the entire ITC register, sale register, everything to the appellate authority and say, sir, we are a bona fide case. See our entire computation. We have paid the taxes. No, sir. You don't need to carry your entire records when you are into an appeal. Please focus on what is the ground, on what grounds that particular demand has been raised. What was your reply to that particular ground? What is the order or discussion part of that particular officer, the adjudicating authority, why he has rejected your submission and confirmed the demand in the show cause notice? You focus on that particular point. I can tell you hundreds of reasons. I'll give you one more live example. There was one case I remember, which was very interesting, a case in tribunal of Chandigarh. What happened there was one survey which happened, a search proceedings which happened, not survey, a search proceedings that happened into a factory, and there were goods which were found to be short than those recorded in the books of accounts. So there was a case of clandestine removal which was made out by the department. After 2 days of that particular search, the assessee filed a letter to the authority stating that sir, you have not seen the trucks which were standing outside my premises, and the shortfall was into those particular trucks. Now, the department, the assessee was in appeal against the order of the learned first adjudicating authority, confirming that particular demand. The tribunal asked very few questions, but very pertinent questions. Did the officers on spot or on the date of search, had they signed the last invoice? The answer was yes. So it was found that the invoices submitted by the taxpayer after 2 days were, the numbers contained on them were after the number of the last invoice, which was duly signed by the officer. Was the stock recorded duly signed by both the parties? Yes, sir. Number 3, whether the officers have made proper entry into the different records of that particular assessee? Yes, sir. Everything was getting readed into the favor of the department. But then there was one point which was very surprisingly taken very strongly by the Honorable Tribunal. While the quantity of the stock was agreed by both the parts as shortfall, the value was not agreed, and department took an arbitrary value which had no basis for confirming a demand to make it a high-pitched demand. On that one point alone, because the battle was on the right ground by the assessee, on that one point alone, the entire demand was quashed. Because now you cannot go back, department cannot go back and rewrite the show cause notice. Show cause notice is written once and forever. That is writing on the stone that cannot be changed. So once an allegation is freeze, your appellate proceedings will only take cognizance of what has been recorded in the show cause notice. It cannot take it beyond what is not there in the show cause notice. So my dear friend, the whole point was to tell you the importance of RUDs, the importance of limiting yourself to the grounds or the issues in the show cause notice, the difference between a scrutiny and a appellate proceeding for that matter, why appellate proceedings should always be originating and the focus should always be on your show cause notice. All these points will help you in a lot in the coming GST regime. Again, in terms of another example in the appellate proceeding, I told you that if your show cause notice failed to provide whether it's a interstate or intrastate demand, challenge it, sir, outrightly. Reason being, it is not a valid charge. Then there is trying to be a collection of tax which is improper against the powers, conferred by the Constitution. So those particular things need to be very carefully looked into. Again, I'll give you a very small example. In one of the tribunal appeals, the assessee came that I want to contest the penalties and the interest. It was a huge demand matter. When the matter came to me, it was very surprising. I was very surprised that the assessee, though assessee was on a wrong footing, has not contested the demand. Now, how can I say that both of the things together, that he was also wrong and he has not contested the demand? So, for the very fact that the show cause notice has alleged a wrong ground for raising the demand. I'm talking about the I'm taking an example, this of pre negative list era, where there were categories in show cause notice. Now, in that particular case, you need to specify under what category are you raising the demand. In that particular case, he was undertaking actual contractual work, and the demand was raised on consulting, which was the interior consultancy services. So, our ground was not that we are paying the correct taxes, we simply said the category which has been chosen by the show cause notice is not proper. It was not an ultra technical argument, I would say, but it was a technical argument whereby the choice of a wrong category will lead to a wrong and improper demand creation on the taxpayer. So if the authority had a valid time frame in hand, they could have they could have issued another show cause notice, which would have been a proper proceeding. And if the order is confirmed in the against that particular show cause notice, the demand would have been confirmed. I'm telling you 100% confirmed against that particular taxpayer. So show cause notice, please attach all the RUDs of show cause notice. You should attach. You should also attach the order copy certified. You should also attach all the requisite documents and papers which you feel that they should be produced before the authority. Please also note, if you are producing any additional documents which you have not produced before the adjudicating authority, please be ready with the answer what prevented you from producing those particular documents before the adjudicating authority. While you will not find much of a challenge in indirect taxes at the first appellate level, but you will be finding a lot of challenge in case of tribunal, and for that matter the higher forums, if those particular documents were not, without any reasons, not produced at the lower before the lower authorities. Now in case any documents like statements, depositions, evidences which are crucial should also be forming part of your paper book. Index your paper book very clearly. The numbers should be on the right top hand side of your page, and they should be very categorically visible. If there are already a number is written on that particular page, please strike it off. Write the new number very clearly so that the person who is the appellate authority is not confused when you are representing the case before him as to which page number of the paper book you are referring to. So there was already a page number 32 written. While numbering before submitting the paper book, you have put another number 43. Now when you're referring to page number 43, the learned appellate authority will be confused, or the honorable tribunal will be confused as to what is this page number, 32 or 43. And I can tell you, you will definitely feel you have to feel the heat of the lordships if these kinds of bad indexings, paper books or numberings are produced before them. Now, apart from the enclosures, what else you should take care is the number of copies. Let me not looking into the paucity of time. I think I have given you some examples. Let me come back to my PPT. What is the peers of an effective appeal? I can, speak about more about the procedural aspect, but let me also speak about some of the things which always help the assessee. It is your right which you should look for. Principle of natural justice. They are grounded in the procedural fairness, which ensure correct decision and accurate, appropriate outcomes. If they are not followed, the entire outcome is vitiated, void. What are the principles of natural justice? Number one, rule against bias. Nemo judex in causa sua. No one can be a judge in its own cause. So there cannot be a bias when you are judging something. You have to be fair. The first principle of natural justice. My dear sir, in this particular case, please, you have to remember that there are very few cases, but if you are able to bring that bias of the proper officer while adjudicating the case, then definitely this particular principle of natural justice will rescue you from any kinds of unwarranted demands of the department. Number two, opportunity of being heard. Audi alteram partem. Very simple. Every one of us know, if you have not been given an effective hearing, that is not a proper justice done to you. A person should not get a mere hearing. Honorable Supreme Court has not in one but many instances said the hearing should not be a mere procedure, a procedural requirement. It should be an effective hearing. And what will be an effective hearing? When with all fairness, you have been given proper chance, proper hearing, proper patient hearing. In one of the cases, the officer said, okay, please keep the documents and I will read it and I'll pass the order. No, sir. It is my right that you please hear me. And many a times I'm telling you, professionals do not take the pain of making the appellate authority hear the entire grievance, the grounds, the facts. Put your effort, sir. You need to put the effort. Whether the authority is interested or not, you please do not form a bias. What are you getting paid from the client for? You're getting paid from the client to present a case. Please be fair to your client. Justify your fees. Your justification of your fees is not success. Justification of your fees is your satisfaction that it is to the best of your ability. And whatever you had, that you had presented his case and you have made his case heard by the authority. If you get that satisfaction, sir, you have well earned your fees. My all young members, I'm just putting a small thought to you, sir. Do not ever get biased with the very fact, sir, us officer ne, I'm sorry, I am using a little bit of a Hindi, sorry. That officer is always passing pro-revenue order. No problem, sir. Let him pass. What is your role as authorized, the counsel? Your role is not to frame your mind before you enter the room. Your role is not to decide the case before it is decided. If you decide the case before it is decided that it is lost, then please do not go and fight that case. Go present that case. Make yourself heard. I understand there will be orders which are, against you. No problem, sir. You have taken your right to hear. And I'm telling you, any authority having heard you, if he pens down an order against you, he will somewhere have in his mind that, sir, I am doing something improper. I'm doing something wrong. This order will get quashed tomorrow. Sir, that particular thought process is very important because you are fighting the right battle. Please fight it with full spirit. That is the role of this particular doctrine. Opportunity of being heard. If it is not given to you, you should clearly challenge it out. The courts will definitely, nullify that particular order. But if you have been given a fair opportunity of being heard and you are not making use of it properly, then sir, courts cannot help you. In one of the cases, again, I remember the first appellate authority had in his note sheet taken a record that the further submissions will be given up to a particular date. But before that particular date, the order was passed by the first appellate authority on this particular principle only, We had gone, we had fought before the Honorable Tribunal in 2 minutes. We were able to make out a case that we have not got the proper opportunity because we had requested for the submissions to be taken further to be taken up by the learned First Appellate Authority, which he failed to do so. So it was a partly heard matter which has been decided, and therefore it was remanded back to the First Appellate Authority. Passing of a reasoned order. This particular principle was not initially there, but over the period of time, passing of a reasoned order has now found a place in principles of natural justice. And if the order is not reasoned, it's a pure vanilla statement given by an appellate authority or the adjudicating authority. Sir, it is no order, sir. That is the simple understanding which one should carry. So, Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Dharamlal Satyapal Limited versus Deputy Commissioner of Central Excise, it was clearly held that the opportunity to provide hearing before any decision was a basic requirement. I think we can, on that particular principle, we can keep on speaking to whatever time is granted to me. Very important, only 3 adjournments are allowed before both First Appellate Authority and before tribunal also. So you will not get much chances, with those particular authorities. So, friends, I think I am. It's already okay. We have another 6-7 minutes. Let me take benefit of those particular 7 minutes to take you through section 108, which is the revisional powers. Let me first read out this section and then I will tell you some intricacies in this particular section. Powers of the revisional authority. Subject to the provision of section 121 and any rules made thereunder, the revisional authority may, on its own motion, so there will be a revisional authority which has been appointed, on his own motion or upon information received by him or on the request from the Commissioner of the State Tax or the Commissioner of Duty Tax, call for and examine the records of any proceedings. Now, we are living in a cross jurisdiction, so the information can or request can come from the Commissioners of State Tax and the UT Tax also. Call for and examine the records of any proceedings, and if he considers that any decision or order passed, so we are talking about the first, the adjudicating authority order, that any decision or order passed under this act or under the state GST or UT GST by any officer subordinate to him is erroneous insofar as it is prejudicial to the interest of the revenue. So a decision which is erroneous to the extent it is wrongly given and is detrimental to the SSC will not be falling under the powers of 108. In income tax, you have powers on both sides. You can go for when it is apparently wrong to the SSC or apparently wrong to the revenue. The both can be rectified. Apologies, but income tax I know on a very, I would say I'm not practicing in income tax, so I'm just referring. I think you all understand those particular section. In GST, 108 will be only invoked if it is detrimental or it is against or it is prejudicial to the interest of the revenue. So, to the interest of the revenue and is illegal or improper or has not taken into account certain material facts, whether available at the time of issuance of the order or in consequence of an observation made by the CAG. So many a times CAG also looks into the files and then they pass a particular observation which they form as a part of the CAG report. Now this particular thing has been taken up in the powers of the revisional authority, that on the observations of CAG, that particular order can be reviewed by the revisional authority. He may, if necessary, stay the operation of such order or decision for such period as he deems fit, and after giving the person concerned an opportunity of being heard. Again, a very straight principle of natural justice is being followed, that in such particular cases, an opportunity should be given to the person against whom the order is getting reversed, that why this particular order should not be passed, and after making such further inquiry, pass an order as he thinks just and proper, including enhancing or modifying or annulling the said decision or order. Now, please understand and appreciate one thing. even though the power has been given to enhance, it still cannot travel beyond the show cause notice. For going beyond the show cause notice, another new show cause notice need to be issued by the department. So the proceedings will start from 73 and then they will travel accordingly from 73, 74 all to the 107 or 108 as the case may be. So order can be passed only after giving the person the opportunity of being heard. In case of UOI versus Honey Lara Textile Limited, the review order passed without giving the opportunity was held to be void. And after making such inquiry, order will be passed for enhancing, modifying, or annulling the said decision or order. It will not be remanded back. So you have three choices. The revisional authority have three choices: enhance, modify, or annul the order, and accordingly he can pass his order. Now such powers are so wide that he can also take it suo motu. There have been restrictions which have been placed under section 108 that these particular issues cannot be taken up under the revision if the matters have gone into appeal. Now, again, friends, I am leaving this discussion at this point. This is your appeal filing process. Your APL 1 has been made live on the GSTN portal. Disputed amounts or the payment details have to be filled in. Pre-deposit percentage of the disputed amount has to be provided. It has to be disposed by way of utilization of cash or ITC ledger. You can append any supporting documents, attach and upload them, and preview the application and proceed to file. So this is all under your user facility, gst.gov.in. Once you log in under your user services, you have my application. In my application, select the appellate proceeding, and then under the appellate, you will follow this particular procedure to file the appeal. So friends, I hope I was able to cover within the time frame given to me. We are now left with around 18 minutes, and as per the orders of the chairman, sir, I am opening the house for question answers, sir. Chairman, sir.
Sir, sir,
Hi.
shall we go to Q&A session, sir?
Definitely, sir.
I'll enable the chat, sir. So you can take up the questions in the chat box, sir.
Sir, sure, sir. Whether appellate authority can condone delay in filing beyond time limits of 1074 in Supreme Court order under Article 142 read with Article 141. Sir, I have already spoken. These issues have been taken, Sagarji, by in consideration by the Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Singh Enterprises. Now that particular decision also followed by Uttam Sakrotech, or for that matter Om Prakash decision, Ketan versus Paresh versus Directorate of Enforcement. N number of decisions have already been put into place that particular timeline cannot be extended. So I think this particular question will be tested time and again till one of the assessees gets the relief from Honorable Supreme Court. Rucha Kelkarji is saying, thank you for your compliments. Will there be a uniformity in formatting guidelines across country? There can never be. See, these are all subjective issues. There can only be a guideline in terms of what can be enclosed with a particular appeal or what will be the format of an order. But in terms of, okay, so you're saying standard formatting for appeal documents. Ruchaji, I'm not very sure, but up to the first appellate authority, they are not very particular. But yes, after the first appellate authority in tribunal, and of course, High Courts and Supreme Court, they are very, very particular in terms of their font alignment, spacing. Till first appellate authority, we have not seen much of objection in terms of formatting. Honorable Tribunal is more particular about the paper size and the spacing, and more particularly when you're into the presidential bench, you will face these kinds of issue. But other judges, usually we have seen, they are kind enough to allow these kinds of procedure, or the formatting errors, or what you call that, referential errors. And therefore should be, my humble opinion has always been one thing: irrespective of your appellate authority, you have to be very, very particular. You have to be very, very particular in terms of your reference from the very first stage. So if you ask me as a humble opinion, you don't need any guidelines. You should follow the guidelines which have been given by Honorable Tribunal, or for that matter, Honorable High Court, and of course Honorable Supreme Court, from the very first level wherever possible. So spacings, alignments, font sizes, all should be imbibed into your practice. It should not be taken, or should be only followed when it is a forceful imposition. No, sir. Please follow as a matter of practice. In tribunal, for enhancement, will show cause notice be again be issued? Yes. Shubham Agarwal, tribunal will not enhance it. Enhancement, the word comes automatically with one thing. It is pre-wedded to one thing: opportunity to be heard. And without, the opportunity is only imbibed when there is a proper allegation. For framing a proper allegation, there has to be a section 73 or a 74 show cause notice. So please remember, no allegations without 73, 74. In case of revised order, the 3-month period will start from the revision order. Yes, it will start from the revision order if the subject matter of appeal is there in the revision order. But suppose the revision was on a different pretext, but the original order is still communicated to you in time, ma'am, you will have to, Rakiji, you will have to stick to the date of the first. Revision, we have seen in certain cases, is often taken as a bypass route to counter the limitation time. So in many times we have seen the SSC have succeeded, but there are very few rare cases where the courts have taken cognizance of the fact, the requirement of, and the issue involved in such revision. Can GST tribunal allow the application beyond the condemnation period? In my humble opinion, yes, Nikhilji, it's as good as a court. Due to the inherent powers imbibed within that particular body, it can allow the condemnation period. But when statute has provided, whether Singh Enterprises will apply to the Honorable Tribunal or not, there is a bit of clash in terms of the condemnation. So in my humble opinion, please wait for some time. The tribunals should come out with the particular provision that to the extent of condemnation, since they have inherent power of the court, they will not be bound of not admitting an appeal if there is a strong ground of delay, reason for delay. How to show GSTR 9 DRC 03 payment in 9C? Nikita ji, I understand this is a national issue, but sorry, my topic for the day was appellate proceeding. I understand the moment we get into annual return, we always will spend hours and hours speaking about these annual return issues, ma'am. Please, you can understand that we have to, respect their topic and time. I thank all the Vijayawada members for their wonderful compliments. I'm actually, humbled by your kind words. Many thanks for showering such kind words to me. Can you please explain the procedure regarding show cause notice? Then an order will be issued. Shubham Agarwalji, the show cause notice, which is issued under 73 or 74, is the first starting point for any proceedings under the GST. Now, a show cause notice can be issued only in 3 cases: when there is a short payment or non-payment of tax; number 2, when there is a wrong availment or utilization of input tax credit; and number 3, when a refund has been erroneously taken. In these 3 cases, in the 2 circumstances, fraud, suppression, or willful misstatement, 74 will be evoked. If these 3 elements are missing, 73 will be evoked. But only in these 3 cases only, tax shortfall, ITC wrong, or erroneous refund, a show cause can be issued. There is no other recovery which can be made in GST against an SSC. The SSC made wrong booking in the books of accounts. Many a times we are sort of carried by our accounting flavor when we are doing GST. So do not take your accounting. I would say the very nature of a chartered accountant when you are studying GST. Stick to the law. If I have to ask you, sir, what are the basic documents to be issued in GST? Can you tell me, sir? How many of you have read Section 31 sacrosanctly? Tell me that. Section 31 tells you there are 8 documents which are to be issued in GST, and your entire GST compliance can be made on the basis of those 8 documents. If you know those 8 documents, your entire GST is before you in terms of compliance. Every register, record, everything can be made from those 8 documents. So, in terms of show cause notice, sir, there is endless things which I can speak, Shubhamji. I'll just request you to, move forward. Online filing of appeal. Sorry, I think, sir, MOV 09 was issued by officer of another state. Where would the appeal lie? State of registration or state where MOV 09 is issued? Jatinji, the order can be appealed to the higher forum. It is a very trite rule of law. I hope you have also you are aware of what is called a zero FIR. Let me not go into the very basics of the hierarchies, but the uh, appeal will lie to the jurisdictional senior of the person who has issued the order. That's a trite law. But if you challenge the very jurisdiction of that particular person, you can straight away move into a writ to the Honorable High Court. So there is a difference between challenging the jurisdiction. If you agree to the jurisdiction of that particular person, the appeal will lie to his jurisdictional senior. So it will be the state where MOV 9 is issued and not the state in which you are registered. Yes, in principle, I agree. There has to be a difference between an inspection report which is made in all your MOVs. Now, when we speak about MOVs, I am sorry to say the entire MOVs are the creatures of a circular. They are not even there in the rules. But once that particular process is being followed, and it is under challenge, I can tell you, before various high courts, the MOVs are without the authority of law. So once an inspection report is framed, the order of order under section 129 or 130 should have been issued by the jurisdictional officer. But looking into the complexity of the very structure of our country, none of us is able to bring out a solution or mechanism how that detention, the order, and the release can be worked in tandem between the 2 or 3 different officers who are involved in this particular exercise. Is it possible for an assessee to pay GST on mistake made in 1718, especially for RCM on GTA before authorities take up the audit? Definitely, Vipulji, you can pay the taxes anytime, even if they take up the audit anytime. You can pay your tax demands anytime, sir. What is the amount of pre-deposit of disputed tax to second appellate authority? It will be 20% of the 90%. No, it will be 20% of the tax in dispute. So 20% of the 100%, sir. Have you given up your 10%? Are you admitting that 10%? No, sir. Your tax amount in dispute remains 100 rupees. 10 you have deposited earlier, 20 please deposit now, sir. My query, there any provision mentioned in the Act to question about SCN? Can you refer the section on rule? See, there is no, if you are challenging the jurisdiction, see, how can you challenge a SCN? Either it is not the jurisdictional officer who has the authority to issue, or the very show cause notice is void. As I've told you, if there is a substantial question of law which can be framed in terms of jurisdiction or in terms of any of the breach of the power, rights which have been sort of violated by that particular officer of that particular, assessee, please go to Honorable High Court directly, sir. Can an SCN be issued under 130? If yes, can they say notice was pasted on gate and later served a notice after 1 year period of search conducted? Rakiji, I'm not very sure, but yes, if you're talking about the mechanisms of service of a notice, then yes, pasting is one of the mechanisms of due service. But then there are other conditions which are attached to it. Under VAT law in Karnataka, as well as CST, I'm Gopiji, I'm skipping the VAT and the CST part, sir. Sir, I'm taking the last question for the day. It's amazing to see the kind of attention I have got from Vijayawada branch members. Everybody was awake while I was told by Srinivas, the chairman, sir, that most of the members will be sleeping, but I don't see that. With the kind of quantum of questions, I can very well tell the chairman, sir, most of your members were awake, sir. Same notice has been received from the same office in spite of responding to first notice. What is the remedy? Sir, you should very strongly write to the officer that this particular notice on the same issue has duly been responded. Refer to that particular earlier notice, and also please refer to that you should write to the officer to refer to that particular reply which is already in submission. So this will save the entire double proceedings, or what we call the unnecessary burden on the SSC in terms of dual exercises, where he has to prepare and present the cases time and again on the same issue. If your order is in place against the first, very good, that will suffice. If the order is not in place, he can refer to the same earlier notice and drop the present proceedings. Due to non-filing of return notices received for filing return, whether interest is payable after adjusting input credit or output interest is payable. Due to non-filing of return notice received for filing return, whether interest is payable after adjusting input tax credit. Sir, there is an exception. Mohammadji, this one exception has been carved out. In section 50, subsection 1 proviso, the benefit of ITC being reduced. The benefit has been restricted in cases where any proceedings of recovery has been initiated against the SSC under 73 and 74. So please refer to that particular provisos under section 50, subsection 1. Chairman sir, if you have I have your kind permission, can I conclude the session, sir? Chairman sir?
Sir, tell me, sir.
Chairman sir, with your kind permission, can we conclude the session, because I have one more engagement after this?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Definitely. And thank you, sir. Thank you very much for really gracing the occasion and enriching our students about our members about the appeals and procedures and other things also. Thank you very much for the excellent session, because I'm also being time and again oscillating from the session because I am not completely attached to your session, because tomorrow is going to the examinations.
Okay.
The chief coordinator for the same. I'm just coordinating all those things in the branch. So thank you very much, really, for enlightening us on the appeals and other portions. Sir, kindly share your PPT to our members so that I can share it to our members. And my dear delegates, really excellent way of participation of all the things. Because sir, today is being the last day. I don't understand that, because only a 550 participation, but every day there is nearly 800 to 900 members are the participants are there every day, and the total is 1278 are the registrations for this group. That's an excellent way of supporting the branch and getting enriched by this excellent course, refresher course on the practical aspects of GST. Thank you for the wonderful delegation.
Thank you.
We'll call it further.